If you missed it, you have only yourself to blame. These are the Waterpolo Champions League highlights. Brescia beat Ferencvaros in Budapest. Great Barcelonetta comeback in Marseilles. Radnicki continues the fight, and Hanover is fighting for the quarter-final stage. These are the results of round 5. This was the match both teams couldn't afford to lose. Novibeat came into this match with 3 points won against Yadran in Split. The Croats got their first win against Yadran Herceg-Novi in round 5. The Belgrade mayor, Aleksandar Shapic, was again on the bench after winning the Serbian Cup against Radnicki over the weekend. Yadran lost in the final of the Croatian Cup against Mladost, but had a great deficit in this match. Their first goalkeeper, Marko Bijac, is injured. Novibeat started well. Mladost gave them a 2-1 lead, but Yadran responded with 4 goals, all in man-up attacks. Nemeth and Dušević were earning exclusions. After Primorac scored his second goal, it was 2-5 for the Croatian champions. In the second quarter, Yadran was holding a 3-goal advantage. After this Butic penalty shot, it was 4-7 for Yadran. Novibeat responded with Mladost in the last moment of the attack for 5-7, and that was the result of the first half. In the third quarter, it started with Perkovic using his size and skill to reduce the deficit to 1. By the end of the quarter, Novibeat has managed to catch Yadran, first Martinovic and then Čuk again, his third goal for 9-9. The last quarter started with Čuk scoring again, this time from more than 6 metres. Yadran tried to come back into the game. Primorac scored for 11-10. The young Australian had a great game. This was his 4th goal from a 4th attempt. That was all Yadran could do in this match. Novibeat scored 4 goals until the end, finishing the match with Lukic from 5 metres for the final score of 15-10. Perkovic and Čuk led the Serbian team to victory with 4 goals each, whilst Primorac scored 4 for the Croatians. Yadran Split is out of the quarter-final stage. Novibeat will fight for it in the last round against Yadran Herceg-Novi. Because Primorac defeated Oradea in the match played earlier, it was already known before the game between Ferencvaros and Brescia that the Italians would advance to the quarter-finals regardless of the result. This made the match in Budapest less burdened by the competitive imperative. The only question was who would finish first and who would finish second. Let's recall, the first meeting between the two teams was a true goal fest, which the reigning European champions won 21-17. Unlike that match, the duel in Hungary began much more modestly. In the opening minutes, we saw several missed man-up opportunities on both sides, and the first goal was scored only after 6 minutes. Jancic then unlocked the game, giving the home side the lead. And that was it. The first quarter ended with that very score. But the second quarter was the complete opposite, as many as 13 goals. At the start of the period, Ante Višković equalised with a man-up goal. Ferencvaros managed to pull away for the first time early in the quarter. Stylianos Agriopoulos scored for 3-2 with an extra player, and just a minute later, Eduardo Di Salma extended the lead, also with a man-up. However, the Italians quickly got back into the game. They also began converting their numerical advantage. Tommaso Giannazza reduced the deficit, and soon after, Vincenzo Dolce equalised. By the end of this thrilling quarter, Brescia had completely turned the match around with 3 consecutive goals. Vlado Popadic gave them their first lead, and just 1 second before half-time, Jacopo Alessiani made it a 2-goal advantage. The visitors didn't stop there. They continued their fantastic run, and after 2 goalless minutes, Mario Del Basso pushed them to a 9-6 lead. A long scoreless period followed, 4 minutes, before Christian Manhert scored Ferencvaros' first goal after 8 minutes. In the next attack, De Sorma brought the hosts even closer. With Brescia holding a 1-goal lead, the game entered the final quarter after Martin Vamos converted an extra player. The last period also began with a scoring drought lasting 3 minutes before Popadic scored another important man-up goal for the visitors. Still, the home side fought back late in the game. Manhert scored with an extra player and Agriopoulos converted a penalty to equalise. A dramatic ending followed. Brescia took the lead again with Popadic's third goal, another man-up conversion. Only 10 seconds later, in the next attack, Ferencvaros equalised at 12-12 thanks to Manhert's third goal. There were no more goals until the end, although Ferencvaros had a man-up chance, but Ferrero stole the ball. Each team earned a point, and the second one was to be decided by a penalty shootout. There, the Italians were much calmer. Goalkeeper Tommaso Baggi saved Manhert's penalty, and in the next round, Vamos hit the post. On the other side, all 4 Brescia shooters were precise, and the decisive goal was scored by Matteo Giri. It was Ferencvaros' first defeat in 8 months, their last also coming in a shootout against Barcelonetta. With this result, Brescia not only secured a place in the quarter-finals, but also theoretically remained in the race for the first place in Group C, heading into the final round. Only Vasas and Primorac Kotor entered the 5th round without wins in this season of the Waterpolo Champions League. Oradea coming to Kotor was the best chance for the hosts to change that. Primorac started the game well and soon had a 3-goal advantage after this goal from Stanojevic for 4-1. Gordashevich reduced it with his first goal of the match, and that was the score of the first quarter. At the beginning of the second quarter, it was already 6-2 after this Chetkovic goal, and it seemed like an easy game for the Montenegrins. But Oradea quickly came back. Velkic scored for 6-4 mid-second quarter. Chetkovic uses a pretty assist from Inabe for 7-4. That was the 3rd goal for the Primorac centre, only for Gordashevich to score again from more than 6 metres. The Romanians continued with good plays and managed to equalise with Vancic's second goal, 7-7. Primorac answered with a series of their own, 4 goals in a row. Balša Vučković made it 11-7. That was 7 minutes before the end of the match. Whatever Oradea tried, Primorac had an answer. They have closed the match with 2 penalty shots for the final score of 15-11, the first win for Primorac in this season. Mrsic scored 4 goals for Primorac, 5 for Gordashevich on the other side were not enough to stop the hosts. Matchday 5 in Group D delivered a high-stakes clash between Marseilles and Barcelonetta. The French side entered the pool determined to avoid a 3rd straight European defeat, a slip that would seriously jeopardise their push for a quarter-final berth. On the other side, Barcelonetta arrived with something to prove. Barcelonetta meanwhile arrived looking to reassert control. Their flawless run in the Spanish league was halted by Sabadell, and this matchup served as a timely gauge of how swiftly they can recalibrate. Still, Of all the teams in this group, their path to the quarter-finals remains the most secure, even though the trajectory of the match didn't fit that script, for the most part. The French side produced a near-perfect opening. Vernou struck twice, first finishing a clinical counter-attack, then powering an in-action shot before Bouet added another brilliant effort from the left wing to stretch the lead to 3-0. It took more than 6.5 minutes for Barcelonetta to finally unlock the French defence. Echenique converted a power play for 3-1, but Marian Vernou restored the 3-goal gap before the first break. 4-1, Marseille fully in command. The second quarter followed the same storyline, Barcelonetta finding answers through man-ups. Sanauja pulled one back for 4-2, but Marseille responded instantly. Kalogeropoulos buried a penalty for 5-2, only for Vigvari to mirror it on the opposite end for 5-3. Goal for goal, yet Marseille never ceded control. Another penalty conversion pushed their lead to a match high of +4, the French side punishing every defensive hesitation from Barcelonetta. But right before the half-time whistle, Sanauja struck again, a spark of hope that would soon erupt into a full-scale La Remontada. At the break, Marseille led 8-5. And the momentum flipped after the break. Biel fired the first goal of the penultimate quarter. Kalogeropoulos struck with a man-up for 9-6, what turned out to be one of only 2 goals the French side managed in the entire period. From there, Barcelonetta carved their path back into contention. Vigvari struck, Valls followed, reducing Marseille's once comfortable lead to the slimmest possible margin. But just seconds before the final 8 minutes, the ex-Barcelonetta man Larumbe found the back of the net to make it 10-8. A thriller in the end. Marseille opened the fourth quarter with Bouet converting another penalty for 11-8. But the Spanish champions simply refused to give up. Vigvari struck another action shot for 11-9. The following extra man, expertly finished by Echenique, narrowed the margin further to 11-10. Biel made sure his long-range shot equalised the score for the first time in the match, while Burian had the final say with this action shot goal, just over 2 minutes by the final whistle, 11-12. Marseille pushed everything forward in the closing seconds. Teshanovic forced a 7-on-6 situation and earned a final minute penalty, the chance to send the game to a shootout. Drašovic stepped up, but Aguirre produced a monumental save, denying the equaliser. A match-winning moment that sealed the comeback victory. Marseille now suffered their 3rd consecutive defeat, while Barcelonetta celebrated yet another Champions League win with a clear showcase of resilience under pressure to remain the leaders of the group. A true do-or-die night in Kragujevac. For Radnicki, this clash was their last lifeline, a must-win to keep their Champions League hopes alive. On the other side, Mladost arrived with everything to gain, knowing a victory would book them a direct spot in the quarter-finals. The home crowd got the lift they'd been waiting for. Nikola Jasic was back in the water. The Serbian national team captain, sidelined for most of the season by injury, had his moment for the return, the first European minutes of the year in a crucial final match of 2025. Mladost came out flying, a blistering start from the visitors, who looked sharper and more decisive in every phase of play. They struck 4 times without replay in the opening quarter, with Lasic, Basic, Lonchar and Bukic all getting on the score sheet. Radnicki searched for answers, but Marseilles shut the door, keeping his net untouched. 4-0. It took almost 10 full minutes before the home crowd finally had something to cheer about. It was Strahinja Rašović who broke Radnicki's scoring drought, firing in their first of the night. As the first half wound down, the goals kept coming, yet Mladost held firm to their 3-4 goal advantage, always staying one step ahead on the scoreboard. By the 16-minute mark, they could already boast 7 different goal scorers, a testament to both their depth and their fluid, unpredictable attack. 4-7. Radnicki paved the road to a comeback in the third quarter, exploding for 6 goals in this period, with Mladost answering with 2 less. Every time Mladost managed to score, the hosts answered with 2 of their own. On the second such exchange, they closed the gap to just 1 goal for the first time, thanks to Perlanovic calmly converting from the penalty line. Mladost did manage to withstand the pressure for a moment, responding with back-to-back goals to restore the +3 advantage. But Fapensky and Strahinja Rašović struck again, allowing the home side to enter the fourth quarter trailing by just a single goal, 10-11. By the final 8 minutes of truth and pure adrenaline, Radnovic and Karkov ended the match with their 3rd personal fouls, followed by Lonchar and Buljabasic at the start of the final chapter, and a fairy tale ending for Radnicki. After Lasic put Mladost ahead 11-8 late in the third, the visitors hit a 10.5-minute scoring drought. Radnicki capitalised fully, producing a run of 6 unanswered goals, including the 2 late strikes in the penultimate period, to close out the match and complete a stunning turnaround. 2 from Perlanovic, 2 from Vlachopoulos, sealing a 14-11 victory. Olympiacos have been playing brilliantly this season, and it's no secret that they are one of the biggest favourites to win the European title. The Greeks have been dominant, and their only loss came away in Zagreb against Mladost, with a goal conceded in the final second. In this round, they hosted Vasas, the only team in Group A still without a single point, already eliminated from all quarter-final scenarios. In the first meetings between these teams, Elvis Fatovic's side was extremely dominant and celebrated in Budapest with a 10-goal difference. That the story might unfold similarly in Piraeus became clear already after the first quarter. A hurricane-like start from the home team. They took the lead in their first attack with a goal from the exceptionally inspired centre-forward, Konstantinos Kakaris. In fact, Kakaris immediately scored his 2nd goal as well. The visitors' net was being hit from all directions, and soon it was time for the brilliant left-hander Gergo Zelenki. The Hungarian first finished off a counter-attack. Shortly after, he converted a man-up situation for an incredible 6-0 lead after less than 7 minutes of play. In the second quarter, Olympiacos increased their lead to 7 with a goal from Evangelos Poros. Half-time arrived with a 7-goal difference after a strike by Bence Batori. In the second half, the Greeks not only maintained their comfortable lead, they kept expanding it. Kakaris stretched it to +9 with another extra player goal. The centre-forward finished as the top scorer with 4 goals. But they didn't stop there. They scored 5 consecutive goals. After 24 minutes of play, it was 16-4 thanks to the second centre-forward, Dimitrios Nikolaidis. In the final quarter, the spectators saw plenty of goals. It was the most productive period with 8. The visitors finally broke a 6.5-minute scoring drought through Peter Salai with a shot from 6 metres. The last goal for Vasas was scored by Bogdan Durdic with a man up. But the final word belonged to Olympiacos as Nikolaidis, again with an extra player, set the final score to 28. The Italian champions had already secured their place among the top 8 teams in Europe. All that remained was to make sure they got there as the group winners. Yadran was still very much alive in the race for the next phase of this prestigious competition, but standing in their way was one of the toughest obstacles imaginable, and in the end, it proved exactly that. Despite a strong opening quarter in which the hosts matched the visitors goal for goal, closing the period at 3-3, the question of the winner began to take shape in the second quarter. Pro Recco started building their lead right from the beginning of that period, with goals from Relive, De Fulvio and Granados, while the home side needed almost half the quarter to find their way past Nicosia again. 2 goals from Irving, who was emerging as the match's top scorer, followed by Valera and then Irving once more. That was the scoring trajectory that closed the first half and gave Pro Recco a 5-9 advantage at the break. The third period pushed the margin even higher. For the second quarter in a row, they outscored Yadran 6-2, tightening their hold on the match with every possession. Irving added another brace, followed by goals from Canella, Duric, Joki Grata and Buric. The hosts could offer only 2 replies, Lasic early on and Merkelov late, his goal shaving Recco's 9-goal advantage, the largest of the night, down by 1. The final 8 minutes proved to be the most goal-filled stretch of the match. 10 goals in total, the home side now outscoring Recco 6-4 in the final stretch. But the moment that unquestionably stole the show was the very last one. Yadran's goalkeeper Andrić scored from goal to goal for the final 13-19. Recco preserved their unbeaten run, leaving Yadran with one last opportunity on matchday 6 to claim a spot among Europe's Elite 8. An extremely important match in Group D was played between Sabadell and Hanover. It was a direct battle for second place and a spot in the quarter-final group. Coming into this round, the Germans had a 3-point advantage, which meant that victory was imperative for the Spaniards. Otherwise, they would be out of all contention before the final round. In the first meeting, played in the second round at the end of October, Hanover won 16-14 in their home pool. The first quarter was also the most efficient. The visitors opened better, while the hosts finished stronger. The first goal of the match was scored by Nicholas Schipper, giving Hanover the lead. Zoran Bosic then put them ahead again with a shot from distance. But that's when Sabadell stepped up. They took their first lead through Konstantin Averka on a counter-attack, and Martin Famera made it +2, just 2 seconds before the end of the quarter. The second quarter was less productive. Hanover didn't allow the hosts to break away, and the half ended 6-5 after a goal from Lazar Vukicevic. Then in the third quarter, the Germans went on the offensive and completely turned the match around with 3 consecutive goals. Bosic first equalised, and soon after Nikola Milodovic did well at the centre-forward position. Lucas Kuipers then gave Hanover their first 2-goal lead with an extra-man goal. Rafael Saboya Vergara cut the deficit for the hosts, also with an extra player. Signs that the points might head to Germany appeared early in the final quarter, when Vukicevic restored the 2-goal lead with a long-range shot from 6 metres. And it became quite clear that Hanover would defeat Sabadell for the second time this season, when Mark Gansen scored with another man-up situation. True, Oscar Asensio responded quickly with a goal from the centre-forward position. The finish was marked by a lot of nervousness. Hanover's Henrik Vandenberg was excluded with substitution, and shortly after, Konstantin Averka received the same punishment on the opposite side. But by then, everything was already decided. With this result, Sabadell dropped out of all quarter-final scenarios, while Hanover keeps everything in their own hands, holding a 3-point advantage over Marseilles, heading into the final round. This is how the tables look like after 5 rounds. Only Group C has 2 definite travellers to the quarter-final stage. Everywhere else, the fight continues. In Groups B and D for second place, Group A justified all prognostics. Everything will be decided in the last round that will take place next year. It's now time for the national teams to shine. See you next year in 2026.